So, you know the feeling, right? You starting a blank page or a project, you know exactly what you need to do, but it feels like there's a psychological wall between you and starting. Well, it actually turns out that feeling isn't some personal failure, it's actually a chemical battle happening inside your brain. So, let's get into the real science behind why we all put this thing off. So, that initial moment of resistance, it can feel like you're trying to push a car uphill, yes? And for so long, we all have been telling ourselves the same old story about why is that? I mean, we all have been there. We beat ourselves up, thinking if I had just a bit more discipline, more grit, if I could just force myself to do it. But what if that the whole idea is just wrong? And this is the absolute takeaway. Procrastination is a biological response. It's your body sending you a very clear, specific message. Think of like a checking engine light. It's telling you something. Is it off? Is there is a task, your mental state, or maybe you even with your mind? Okay, so let's get into the first major blocker, and spoiler alert, it's not about you, it's your neurology. Your brain is actually literally slamming you on the brakes before you even thought about hitting the gas. So this is what actually happening deep inside your brain. It's a primal tug of war. You genuinely want to get the project done, and that's the approach part. But real brain, which is hardwired for survival, see the struggles, and the hard work is a threat. And that triggers the avoidance response. It's a deep-seated instinct to just, conserve energy and avoid anything that is uncomfortable. And here's why it feels physically bad. It's not about your head. Your brain actually floods your system with these stress chemicals. It what makes you feel anxious, restless, and agitated. Your brain is trying to protect you from what it is threat, and even if that threat is just boring as a spreadsheet, it's basically a biological alarm system that is basically a little bit too sensitive for your modern office. So how we get this around? Well, you kind of have to trick your brain. You have to make the first step ridiculously elaborately small that it doesn't have to even register a threat. You're taking a microscopic, not a bright report, and we're talking about open the laptop or even just put my fingers on a keyboard. And this is just a perfect real world example of that principle. See, I'm not thinking about the whole mountain I got to climb. I'm just focusing on the completely not threatening act of opening a file. So by making the first step totally trivial, I just side steps to what approach avoidance better completely. Now, there's another fascinating layer to this. Your brain is always doing the subconscious cost of effective analysis. See, to get into the amazing deep focus flow state, your brain actually has to quiet down its own prefrontal cortex. It's called the transistent hypofrontality, and it takes a ton of energy. If your brain knows you have a meeting in 45 minutes, it does the math and says, no, not worth it. I'm going to get interrupted anyway. So it justifies procrastination as being efficient. Alright, let's move to blocker number 2 because these things tend to stack on top of each other. This one is about running out of fuel, and your brain has a finite amount of processing powers, and our modern lives are just constantly draining the tank. So think a static load like the biological debt from chronic stress. Every single notification, every tiny decision, every little worry, it all adds up. Over time, this literally wears down your brain ability to produce the very chemical like dopamine that you even feel motivated and driven. It's like you're trying to start a car with a completely dead battery. And it's that moment I had realizing my frustration wasn't about a person, but about my own execution sitting about dangerously high. And here's what's happening in real time. Your brain is trying to switch from the idle daydreaming state. That's the default mode networking, so it focuses on get it done state. The task is a positive network. But if your mental RAM is overloaded with dozens of open tabs, email to answer, calls to make, and things to worry about. It's just you take that switch. The whole system is just logs and you feel stuck. This is exactly the feeling of having way too much open tabs in your brain. I just nailed it here. It's a state of self-induced paralysis where your sheer volume of mental clutter makes any kind of focusing action feel completely impossible for you. And the solution here is almost likely simple, but is so powerful. Just to get out of your head, externalize it by dipping every single thought, task, and worry onto a piece of paper. You literally sort and freeing up your processing power. You are for clearing your brain RAM so it can actually finally focus on one thing at a time. Now, this is the chemical side of the overall problem, and it's a huge deal in the modern world. We are basically trained our brain to expect these instant easy hits of dopamine from our phones. This desensitizes our reward system, creating something called an attraction deficit trait, which makes every delayed gratification on real hard work feels, well, neurologically boring. And the fix is completely counterintuitive. You get to embrace boredom, go for a walk in silence, stare at wall, let your dopamine receptor reset so that can actually work and feel rewarding again. Okay, on the third and final blocker, and this one may be the most subtle of all, it's not about the lack of action. In fact, you feel really busy, but you're not actually making any real progress. So these are such critical concept. We constantly mistake activity for achievement. But listen, moving fast in the wrong direction is actually worth first than just standing still. Velocity is about making sure that all the effort we're putting is pointed directly at your most important goal. Speed plus direction. And this is the classic trap of what I call the protective procrastination. We put off the hard important things, the goal-directed actions that really move the needle by getting in a state of flow on easy low-impact tasks. It feels good, it feels productive, but it's just a very sophisticated way to avoid the real work. It's about spending hours tweaking a website that is already good enough, and instead of making the calls that we actually grow the business. A lot of time we resist the task, not because it's hard, but because we haven't clearly defined what done really looks like, or what the single most important next step is. If you don't have clarity, you can't have velocity. You're just spinning your wheels. And this explains a really advanced form of procrastination. We often avoid the tasks that build future leverage, like creating a new system or automating a process, because they require shortened hit to our immediate output. We are resisting the dip. It's choosing to manually answer emails for 8 hours instead of spending 4 hours building a system that could handle them in all one. All because we can stand the initial drop in perceived productivity. So we've diagnosed the three main reasons all engines stall. Now, how we all put together to achieve that feeling of just smooth, effortlessly butter execution. So here it is, your personal diagnostics toolkit. The next time you feel that pull of procrastination, don't ask why I'm so lazy. Instead, ask yourself, is this a resistant problem? Is this an overall problem, or it is a direction problem? And then you can apply the right solution. This is a perfect way to picture it. That neurological resistance, that's the parking brake behind it. The cognitive overload, that's the slug on the gas tank, and that lack of clear direction, your transmission is stuck in a neural. Pushing the accelerator harder isn't going to do anything but make you a lot of noise. You have to fix the underlying mechanics first. So look, the main takeaway is this. You now have the tools to figure out what's really going when you procrastinate. It's not some mortal failure, it's a mechanical one, and that's actually great news because mechanical problems can be fixed. So the only question left is, which brake are you going to release first? Click the link down below to ask me more about it.